Somewhere beneath the surface of the Yangtze River, there are streets, town squares, staircases, doorframes, stone carvings placed there 1,200 years ago. On June 1st, 2003, the floodgates on the Three Gorges Dam closed for the first time. The river had no choice but to rise. By the time it stopped, 13 cities were underwater, 140 towns, 1,350 villages, and 1.3 million people had already left, the largest forced resettlement in human history. A sandstone ridge called White Crane Ridge sank beneath 40 meters of water. Chinese farmers had used it since the Tang dynasty to read the river and predict their harvests. Ancient temples, thousand-year-old carvings, towns where families had lived for 30 generations, gone. The reservoir left behind is 600 kilometers long. China did this on purpose. The decision took 84 years. The event that finally forced it was not an engineering breakthrough. It was a flood that killed thousands of people and left millions homeless. This is the story of a dam that changed a river, buried a civilization's worth of history, and rewired the way a continent generates power. And whether the decision was ever honestly accounted for. The Yangtze River is 6,300 kilometers long. It runs from the Tibetan Plateau through the center of China to the sea near Shanghai. The basin it drains is home to roughly 400 million people. It is also one of the most dangerous rivers on Earth. Here is why. The middle and lower Yangtze flows across flat plains with no natural barrier on either side. When the seasonal rains come hard, the river swells. There is nowhere for the water to go, except over the banks. In 1931, it went over the banks. The flooding lasted months. Conservative estimates put the death toll at 400,000. Some historians believe the true figure was closer to 4 million. It remains one of the deadliest natural disasters in recorded human history. In 1954, the Yangtze flooded again. 33,000 people died. 18 million were displaced. China had been trying to solve this problem since 1919. That year, Sun Yat-sen, the founding father of modern China, proposed a dam on the Yangtze. He laid out the idea in a document called The International Development of China. He saw the river as an engineering problem waiting to be solved. In 1956, Mao Zedong swam across the Yangtze and wrote a poem about it. One line referenced the dam directly. A stone wall will stand upstream to the west, cutting off Wu Mountain's clouds and rain. Both men wanted the dam. Neither built it. Every Chinese leader for 84 years wanted this dam. However, none could agree on whether to actually build it. It took a catastrophe to force the decision. First, a plain English explanation of how a hydroelectric dam works. A dam blocks a river, creating a large reservoir of stored water. Think of it as a man-made lake sitting at a higher elevation than the land downstream. That stored water is released in controlled amounts through tunnels inside the dam. As it falls, it passes through turbines. These are enormous spinning wheels, each roughly the size of a house. They generate electricity the same way a wind turbine does, except with water instead of air. The higher the reservoir and the more water released, the more electricity produced. By the late 1980s, China's engineers had done the calculations. A dam at the Three Gorges section could generate more electricity than any power station on Earth. In 1992, the National People's Congress, China's legislature, voted on whether to build it. The result was unlike anything in recent Chinese political history. 1,767 delegates voted yes, 177 voted no, 664 abstained. In China's legislature, votes almost always pass with more than 99% approval. 1/3 of delegates had either voted against or refused to say yes. Journalist Dai Qing had compiled a book of expert criticism called Yangtze, Yangtze. It raised concerns about geological instability, sediment buildup, and the fate of species dependent on the river. She was arrested after the Tiananmen crackdown in 1989 and spent 10 months in prison. Her book was banned in China. The project went ahead regardless. Construction began in 1994. In 1998, while the dam was still being built, the Yangtze flooded again. 4,000 people died. 180 million were affected. The argument for finishing the dam suddenly needed no more defending. The dam wall is 2,335 meters long. That is roughly 1.5 miles of solid concrete. It stands 185 meters tall, about the height of a 60-story building. It stretches across a gorge the Yangtze has been cutting through for millions of years. 27 million cubic meters of concrete went into its construction, enough to fill roughly 11 Empire State Buildings. Inside the dam are 32 turbines. Each one is roughly the size of a house and weighs over 6,000 tons. Together, they give the dam an installed generating capacity of 22,500 megawatts. A megawatt is 1 million watts of electrical power. To put that in everyday terms, a typical home uses about 1.2 kilowatts at any given moment. That is 1,000th of a megawatt. The Three Gorges Dam can power roughly 18 million homes simultaneously. It is the largest power station ever built. Engineers needed to keep the river out of the construction site while they built. Their solution was a temporary barrier built inside the Yangtze itself, called a cofferdam. It diverted the river around the work zone. The cofferdam alone was one of the largest construction projects in Chinese history. At peak activity, tens of thousands of workers were on site around the clock. The official construction cost was $37 billion. Independent estimates, which include resettlement and long-term costs, run between $75 and $88 billion. The engineering problem was solved. The human problem was just beginning. 1.3 million people. That is the number who had to leave before the water rose. The entire population of Dallas, Texas, told to pack and relocate within 2 years. 13 cities went underwater, including Wanzhou, a city of 140,000 people, including fueling, documented by American writer Peter Hessler in his book Rivertown, written while he lived there and watched the valley change forever. 140 towns, 1,350 villages. Many residents were relocated to unfamiliar regions. Some were sent to provinces far from everything their families had ever known. Government compensation packages often did not cover the real cost of starting over somewhere new. The Yangtze gorges had been continuously inhabited for thousands of years. The gorge walls held carvings, inscriptions, and temples spanning multiple Chinese dynasties. White Crane Ridge was a sandstone reef in the Yangtze River. Farmers had used it since the Tang Dynasty, roughly 1,200 years ago. By reading marks carved into the rock, they could predict whether the coming harvest would be strong or poor. It is now under 40 meters of water. China built an underwater museum around it. Visitors walk through glass tunnels and see the carvings beneath the surface. The Jiangfei Temple, dedicated to a general from the Three Kingdoms period 1,800 years ago, was dismantled stone by stone and rebuilt 32 meters higher up the gorge wall. Archaeologists identified more than 1,200 sites inside the flood zone. Teams worked around the clock for years. They still did not reach all of them before the water came. The dam was finished, but the consequences were only starting. The dam generates approximately 100 terawatt-hours of electricity per year. Simply put, enough to replace burning roughly 50 million tons of coal annually. It also changed how goods move through China. The dam includes a 5-stage ship lock, an elevator for boats, a series of connected water chambers that raise or lower vessels to match different water levels. Before the dam, large cargo ships could not travel far up the Yangtze. The gorges were too narrow and turbulent. Now, 10,000-ton cargo ships travel 2,000 kilometers inland to Chongqing, a journey through the heart of the country that used to be impossible at that scale. For flood control, the dam absorbs surges from the upper Yangtze before they reach the plains. Wuhan, downstream with 11 million people, is significantly better protected than it was in 1998. In 2020, the heaviest rains in decades tested that directly. Water rose to within meters of the overflow threshold. Operators released water downstream to prevent catastrophe, flooding communities below. The dam held, but the trade-off was visible. Protecting one area meant flooding another. Then there is what the dam has cost the river. The Yangtze once carried enormous sediment downstream, fine particles that built coastal wetlands and fertilized farmland near the sea. The dam traps all of it. Riverbanks are eroding, the coastal delta is shrinking. The Yangtze river dolphin has not been reliably confirmed since 2004. Scientists consider it functionally extinct. The Chinese sturgeon has existed as a species for 140 million years. It survived the asteroid that killed the dinosaurs. It is now critically endangered. Its spawning grounds upstream of the dam are no longer reachable. The question was never whether the dam worked. It was whether the full cost was ever honestly counted. The dam works, the lights are on, the floods downstream are smaller, the ships reach Chongqing, the power it generates is real. The flood protection is real, so is the rest. 1.3 million people displaced, irreplaceable history underwater, an ancient species of river dolphin gone. A fish that survived the extinction of the dinosaurs cannot reach its spawning grounds. The original promise was clean: control the river, power the country, end the floods. The reality, as it always is with something this large, was more complicated than the promise. China has not stopped building. The Baihetan Dam, completed in 2021, is now the second largest power station on Earth. More are planned along the same rivers. The era of megadams is not over. Neither is the debate about what they actually cost. Sun Yat-sen imagined this dam in 1919. He saw a river as a problem to be solved. The engineers solved it. Whether the full price was ever written into the equation, that question has no floodgate. If you enjoyed this video, then please subscribe to the channel. It supports us a ton. See you in the next video.